Today we are going to look at Last of Us Episode 1. Here we go. So before we start off with talking about any of the story or characters or what's going on in this first episode of Last of Us, I just want to make sure that you all be careful online. If you haven't played the video game, people are going to spoil it nonstop. There's a couple people that I trust that I could let you know about, and if you want to know, ask in the comments below. But a lot of people are going to be very nonchalant with what are spoilers and what are not, because they've played the video games already, so a lot of people know what's going to come. And from what I've seen from this first episode, this is going to follow the video game perfectly. So please be careful. Don't get this spoiled for you. This is going to be a very epic, very well told story. So please be careful. I will let you know if I'm going to spoil anything. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to give my thoughts about the episode, and then I'm going to go into what I think is going to happen next. I will let you know when I'm transitioning. But to start off with, that intro was very, very interesting, very well done. It kind of made me concerned because we don't get anything like that in a video game. We don't get any background about the clickers or zombies. We don't know why they're there. I mean, there's little details that you go throughout the game, but if you're not really paying that much attention, it's not beat over your head about what this is. And I kind of like that because the story is not really about them. It's about Joel, it's about Ellie, and you don't really need to know why, but I guess it eases some people's souls, and giving it some context was very well done. It was interesting in the podcast they do after each show, how they talked about coming to this. It initially wasn't there, but it gives context to everything. It gives a very eerie feel. It was very well done. It's probably my favorite scene in this episode, which is really saying something, because what happens next is incredible. So the most important thing in this show is going to be that first 15-20 minutes. It's only 15 minutes in the video game. 20 minutes where you meet Joel and Sarah and Tommy, and you see the world fall apart. And it's important because the relationship between Joel and Sarah, I think, it sets up the game. It really makes the game. I find it kind of interesting that they race swapped Sarah. They didn't need to do that. It's not a big deal because this actress absolutely kills it, and it's not about what someone really looks like. It's more about the vibes you produce, and she's not in it very long. As you can see, she dies, and it pulls at the heartstrings just like it did in the video game, and they absolutely nailed that scene. But I don't know, why do you do it? They didn't really talk about that in the podcast. I'd be interested to hear. Maybe she was just the best actress available, but whatever. I mean, in the video game, she's like southern, like really southern white girl. So this was a different vibe, but it's not a big deal because they tell the story intro a little bit different. In the video game, it's all in one night, right? You get the build up all throughout the day, and it adds to the suspense. You know what's coming, you know what this is about, and they build up to it perfectly. And then you get to the car, and when she's not even to when they're in the truck, you get to when she's in the house, and you see the dog knows beforehand, and the suspense, like the little things. And it gets a little tropey, I guess, where you have the zombie eating someone and it looks up and it chases you. But to meet those people before, which you did in the video game, and then to go back and meet them again when everything goes down. And all throughout the days, you get the little signs of how the world's going to fall apart. It's just perfect. You can't really do that in the video game because you got to get right to it. You got to get into action. You don't want to have a bunch of cut screens because that's gonna push people away. So how they tell the story, how it's gonna be different, is gonna be something that I'm looking forward to and looking at a lot. Because when you're telling a story through a video game, it's not the main focus. Your actions are your main focus. You could get little dialogue, little small talk that goes a long way, but because you're focused on moving your character around, solving a puzzle, trying to kill zombies or people, you're not really paying attention to like the story necessarily, but you're getting little details thrown in there, and it allows you to build to it. You also get more time with the characters because you're just walking around with them. You're also playing with them, playing as them, so you're more invested in the story. Not the case with the TV show. You gotta kind of rewrite it in a way where you're invested in the characters and you're getting all the information you need. So it'll be interesting how they do it. I thought they did it very well. It did very well in this episode. The shot by shot you see on the internet of the video game versus the TV show made me very happy. I knew going into this that in the first 20 minutes you're going to be able to tell, hey, is this good or is it going to be bad? And they're following the story to a T. If you did not have that, this was going to be so bad. The death scene also with Sarah, like I said, was very telling. How they played that. The actor who's playing Joel absolutely kills it. So did the actors that played Sarah. You can see a very, very moving story between the characters and how it's going to impact the story in the future. The story doesn't have a lot of twist to it. I think it's fairly straightforward. If you watch movies or TV, you know where it's going, but I think they're going to make what happens in between very interesting and very impactful. So that was a good sign going into it. The other good sign was once we get to Boston, the vibes are spectacular. The vibes are dead on what you want it to be. If you didn't know what this was about, if you only played the video game and you just threw the song, you would know it's The Last of Us. It just feels that way. And we meet some of the important characters there, one being Ellie, who does not look like Ellie at all. They nailed every character but this one, and I don't understand why. I mean, literally, you have a million actresses out there who probably could play this role, who want to play this role. There's got to be one who remotely looks like this very generic white girl who's portrayed in this video game. And they refuse to do it, and I don't understand why. Hopefully it's not a big deal. Hopefully I've just fallen to the story. But how closely Joel is represented to the video game character versus what Ellie looks like, it irritates me. But if she portrays the character well enough, maybe I'll fall into it. But right now it frustrates me. We meet three other characters so far. We meet Tez, who's kind of important. She's like the love interest in Joel, which was only kind of hinted at in the video game, but you get more of a hint of them sleeping together in the story in this one. And I guess none of these characters are really important. You can just kind of see how it's all set up, what's going on. You see Ellie is kind of more snarky in this too, which I don't mind. I know some people that will frustrate, but I think that's very good. You also see them give more of a character to like Fedra, the soldier that Joel ends up freaking out on, which was also very important. They show that flashback, and it shows the strong connection between his relationship with his daughter to maybe his relationship with Ellie pretty clearly at the beginning of what's going to happen, and giving the soldier a name and a face makes him killing him more worthwhile. That's someone he knew, so more dramatic than just killing a random soldier. The other thing that happened in Boston that I found kind of interesting was how they changed the story from the video game to the movie or the TV show. I mean, this was basically a movie episode about how they met up with the Fireflies. And the video game was about weapons. Robert sold her weapons to the Fireflies because they're fighting that war. In this, it was a battery. Same idea, same concept. Not a big deal, but it's interesting how they change things. And the podcast they do afterwards, they explain it perfectly. They were trying to add urgency. It made sense. We want Joel trying to get there quickly. We know Joel needs to go see Tommy, and it kind of allows them to get sent off on this adventure a lot quicker. Not a big change, but it's always going to be interesting in these mediums to see how they're sent off. But you can't say a lot more about the show. The more I think about it, it's more just setup, which kind of stinks. I want the full picture already. You can play this full video game all at once, so waiting week to week is going to eat me alive. One of the things that I did not mention about the podcast that I find very interesting, and it's not something that I really thought about, is how they talked about how this is a love story, but not in a good way, how love will bring out the worst in people. And I think that's something worth keeping an eye on throughout the story, and knowing the full picture, you'll really see that. But you could see that in that 1 second when Joel kills that soldier in front of Ellie, how maybe compassion from, I don't know, his daughter dying from a soldier brings out the worst in him. I think we'll see more themes of that throughout the story. I know we will. I'm really interested to see what happens next. So if you haven't played the video games, if you don't want to know more, please stop here. I'm gonna try to spoil what happens next. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be able to guess what happens in the next episode. So here I go. So chronologically, if you haven't played the video game in a while, they stopped it before I thought they would. I thought they would get all the way to when Tez dies, so we would know the Fireflies aren't going to produce what we think they are. They're not going to show up. They're all going to be dead by Fedra. Trying to find that out. Tez is going to be dead at the very end of this next episode, so and she's going to give Joel this task of getting Ellie west, eventually all the way, and he's going to have to take this up, and he's going to take it up begrudgingly, and it's going to be sad. The one thing we didn't get was that, like, confrontation of Ellie. Like, they didn't freak out because she was affected. They didn't ask why. That happens in a video game. That didn't happen in this episode. I'm trying to think, like, how that's going to take up a full episode, because there's not a lot of dialogue in the video game. It's just small talk, so most of the things are action. So that'll be interesting. It'll also be interesting to see how long it is. I haven't watched the trailers yet for next week, and I probably won't each week because you don't really need to, nor do I want to. The only other thing I think might happen is they might get to Bill, or they might just be sent on the way to Bill, like, hey, we're going to go to Bill. But maybe. I was kind of surprised, but I'm guessing Bill is the third episode. And the only other thing I could see is maybe a flashback to when Ellie got infected and when she was running through this mall with Sarah. And besides that, that's all I can really see in this episode. Overall, I'd say I enjoyed it a lot. It was very well done. It reminded me a lot of the video game, which was very important. And I hope you all stick along with me for this ride. Let me know what you want from me in the future. I tried this out. I might do it differently next time. But that's all I have for now. Ciao.